One of the biggest things about Star Wars that I always liked was the expanded universe, or the EU. What had happened over the years, and this was prior to the prequels, there was a lot of books and video games and toys and all kinds of stuff that was created to expand the universe, because Star Wars is so much more than the 3 films that initially came out. Well, the 3 films, Christmas special, and the 2 TV Ewok movies and all that kind of stuff. But really, there was so much more to it. And with the expanded universe, they went into a lot more detail and showed a lot of the other stuff that was going on within the universe, and it was just really cool. Now, none of these things were officially canon. George Lucas gave his blessing on all the expanded universe stuff, but for the most part, it was just that. It was kind of official fan fiction, I guess you could call it. Along comes Disney, they buy the rights to Star Wars, and one of the first things they do is wipe out the expanded universe. I was bummed out at first because that meant there was no Mara Jade, no Dash Rendar, and no Kyle Katarn. They put out episode 7, The Force Awakens, and I loved that. I thought that that was really good, and even though they got rid of the expanded universe, it restored a lot of my hope in the fact that they were still going to continue to make really good movies. Shortly after that's released, they announced they're doing Rogue One. They announced that it was going to be about a new character who was responsible for stealing the Death Star plans. So this week leading up to the release of Rogue One, I decided to play some Dark Forces. This was an old DOS game where you had Kyle Katarn as the protagonist, and the first mission you do is to steal the Death Star plans, and kind of goes off from there into Dark Trooper Project, but that is a whole other story. Anyway, Rogue One focuses on Jyn Erso. She's the daughter of Galen Erso, who's the lead designer of the Death Star. Ursa teams up with a rebel pilot, Cassian Andor. She's brought into the rebellion so they can find Guerrera, who is this guy who protected her when she was younger, and he's going to be able to help lead them to her father, who's being held captive by the Empire and forced to work on the Death Star. What I liked about the movie, Andor to me felt like how Han Solo felt in A New Hope. He was much more of a shoot first, ask questions later, roguish kind of guy. Not particularly heroic at first, more so doing what he was told and doing some not particularly good things to get results. Actually, that leads me to the other thing I liked about the movie. It had a lot more darker elements to it. I saw a lot of people comparing it to The Empire Strikes Back, and yeah, I could see those comparisons because Empire was a lot darker than A New Hope. And Rogue One, while not being episode 8, definitely was a lot darker than The Force Awakens. I also really liked K2SO. He was the reprogrammed Empire droid voiced by Alan Tudyk. He reminded me a lot of HK-47 from Knights of the Old Republic. Donnie Yen, not surprisingly, was so awesome. He had a few of the best moments in the movie. Darth Vader shows up about halfway through the film and then pops in here and there, which is fine. He didn't necessarily need to be in the entire film because he was not the lead bad guy for a change. He was there to kick some ass when necessary, but he wasn't the lead bad guy. The action was really impressive. I was very pleased with Gareth Edwards' directing. There was a lot of CGI in this. However, Gareth Edwards is one of the few directors that I'm not entirely sure how he does it, but he composites a lot of CGI into movies and just makes it look real. There's so many movies that are just heavily reliant on CG, and they stick out like a sore thumb. And if you've ever seen Monsters, regardless of your feelings on the movie, whether you like it or not, it is incredibly impressive what he was able to do with that. Now, I'm not saying that it was perfect. There were some things that, yes, you could tell they were CG. But for a lot of little things here and there that were composited in, I had a hard time of telling what was practical and what was CG. One last thing that I liked about the movie is maybe finally people will know how to spell rogue. This is rogue. This is rouge. What I didn't like about it, and this was tough, I didn't particularly care for Jyn Erso, which was rough because the whole movie was about her. And I thought that out of all the characters in the movie, she was easily the least likable one and the one that I cared the least about. Now, this has nothing to do with the fact that they erased Kyle Katarn and put Jyn Erso in his place. I'm fine with that. I understand Disney, for whatever reason, decided to go in this direction, and the expanded universe is one thing, and this is going to be something else. But that's not the issue I had. The issue I had was, I don't know what it was. I was kind of hoping that she would start off as like maybe an unlikable character, and over the course of the film, you would get to know her a little bit better, and you would like her more, and there would be that character arc. But I started off just not really liking her all that much, and by the end of the movie, I liked her a little bit more than I did at the beginning of the movie, but I don't know, I just didn't really care for the character all that much. Rey in The Force Awakens, I liked her character a lot, and I'm incredibly interested in seeing where she goes with the next two movies in the trilogy. But Jyn Erso just didn't really do anything for me. I thought the pacing was a little off. It did drag in the middle, and a lot of movies that happens too, but there was just a lot of points where I don't want to say nothing was happening, but it felt like they could have sped things up a little bit. The movie didn't have a text crawl in the beginning. With the original Star Wars: A New Hope, they had to explain what was going on to kind of bring the audience up to speed, because at the time there really was nothing that had come out like it. The movies had kind of continued with that. They used that as a tradition. And not having the text crawl here, them just kind of jumping right into the movie, it felt a little off. It just, the text crawls with the opening score, that to me is a big part of Star Wars. It gets you pumped for the movie and kind of brings you up to speed. And this, they bypassed all that and went right into the movie. Which leads me to the music in the film. I didn't care for the score all that much. Star Wars has always had that booming, legendary score by John Williams, and this, it didn't feel right. It didn't sound like Star Wars, if that makes sense. One of the things that I was interested in was that the movie was going to have Grand Moff Tarkin in it. And as you know, Peter Cushing is dead, and even if he was still alive, he would be a little too old to have been able to play the role. So they replicated him in CG. And while it was really impressive, it still had that uncanny valley feel to it. You just knew as soon as you saw him, okay, that looks exactly like Grand Moff Tarkin, but it's not real. It was incredibly impressive. Probably the best CGI human I think I've ever seen, but still you knew he wasn't real. There's another character in the movie, I won't say who, but they were there and it was a pleasant surprise. But again, they were a CG character, and same thing. You knew that's not that person or an actor who looks a whole hell of a lot like them. It's another CG character. It stuck out just enough, but they're getting there. They're getting better. One thing I forgot to mention, this should go on the things that I liked side, was that awful line from the trailer where, this is a rebellion, I rebel. That was not in the movie. I'm really glad that they either listened to the audience or just decided that that wasn't a good line. But, it was so corny. Star Wars Rogue One, I refuse to call it a Star Wars story. I think that that's a terrible subtitle for the film. They should have just went Star Wars Rogue One. But Star Wars Rogue One, I liked. There was a lot of moments that I wasn't expecting. They were, again, a lot darker and some fairly mean-spirited things that happened in the film that I wasn't expecting at all, and kind of liked that they did that. The cast was really good, with the exception of Jyn Erso. She just, I don't know, I didn't think that she was strong enough to be the lead for the film. The action was great. I'd say the last half hour of the film was incredibly impressive. Seeing the AT-ATs kicking ass and the stormtroopers actually hitting their targets was very enjoyable. There was some Force-sensitive folks in the movie, but there wasn't a Jedi for a change. K2SO completely stole the show. I am running out this weekend to see if I can pick up an action figure for him. I haven't bought a Star Wars action figure in I don't know how long, but I would love to have one of him. He was great. I really liked him and would have liked to have seen more of him. There was a lot of fan service, and that's okay because they handled it really well. Stuff popped in, and it didn't feel particularly out of place. And I'm sure there's all kinds of little things here and there that you'll catch on multiple viewings. There were cameos and just nods to the other movies, and they felt in place because of where they were happening. They were happening between 3 and 4. So, of course, there's going to be some characters from 3 that carry over, and then there's going to be some characters from 4 that you see them before 4 happened, if that makes sense. Rogue One's a good movie. It's going to please a lot of Star Wars fans with the fan service, but also with the very interesting story and how well they bridge the gap between 3 and 4. Seeing how they did this, though, I can't help but cross my fingers and hope that even though they did get rid of the expanded universe, that they have a change of heart and they decide to do Shadows of the Empire, which was the bridge between 5 and 6. There's a lot to like about Rogue One, but as I said, it's not perfect. Jyn Erso, I didn't care for the character. Maybe you'll like her more than I did. And it was a little slow in the middle, but that's not a deal breaker. All in all, it's a worthy movie to carry the Star Wars name, but to be perfectly honest, I still liked Episode 7 better.